Every August and September, back to school season hits, and people continually ask me, Megan, what tips do you have for handling the back to school transition without losing our minds? And here's the truth, I have two very specific strategies I use every single year. And today I'm going to be sharing exactly what they are, when I do it, and why the order of those two really makes a difference. Hey everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you two things I very intentionally do every single back to school season. Because here's what most people get wrong, they try to figure out new routines after they're already drowning in the chaos of the back to school season. All right. So today I want to talk about a better way for you to really plan for this. Now, before we dive in, because we are talking about all things back to school, I want to remind you that this year here at the Pink Bee, we just released our very first ever edition of our brand new top student planner. It is the only student planner that actually teaches your student how to plan because it comes with a digital course showing them four key planning steps that they will master over the course of the school year. Now, we printed a very limited run and they are selling out fast. So if you want to grab yours before they're gone, head over to megansumrell.com/student. So back to school season is crazy. And especially just the first couple of weeks, right? We're transitioning out of summer. We're getting into new routines. We're having to wake up earlier. We're trying to remember like the lunches, the snacks, the backpacks, the school supplies, all of it. And most people take one of two approaches. They either do the, well, let's just wing it, right? We're just gonna kind of see how it goes and then we'll figure out what we want to do. Or the second thing that a lot of people try and do is map out beforehand with excruciating detail what the routines need to look like, right? Exactly how should the mornings go? Exactly how should the post school pickup go? Exactly what should the evenings be like? And both of these approaches, either the wing it or the get really prescriptive ahead of time, are essentially recipes for disaster. So, today I want to share with you two strategies that I've been using for years, and they are happening in the first 2 weeks that you are back to school. One strategy is in week one. The second strategy I focus on in week two, and you want to do it in this order, and I'm going to tell you why. So, first, let's talk about week one. What am I focusing on? Now, what we're talking about here today is strategies that help me maintain my sanity in the back to school season because I know, and I'm sure this is true for you, that if I am calm, cool, and collected in the mornings and I've got a plan of attack, the whole household just runs smoother, right? So in week one, my core focus is figuring out what my morning routine is going to be like for the current school year. I I'm passionate about morning routines. I teach on this inside of the top program. And before we dive into how I do this, I want to make sure you understand what I'm referring to when I talk about a morning routine. There is a difference between a morning task list and a morning routine. The morning task list, most people confuse it for a morning routine. A morning task list are all the things that would live on a to do list that you are likely doing in service to others. So, for example, what a morning task list might look like in the back to school season might be wake the kids up, make breakfast, help pack lunches, make sure, backpacks are, they fill up the water bottle, so on and so forth. Now, a morning routine is what are the things that you are doing for yourself, not in service to others, so that when you are doing some of those tasks in the morning, you're not like low grade, frustrated, irritated, etc. So, when I am thinking about my morning routine, some examples of things that live inside my morning routine is I really know I need to have a cup of coffee in silence, meaning I know that the whole morning runs better if I have gotten up with enough time for me to have a hot minute, have a hot cup of coffee, and not be speaking to anyone or doing anything for anybody else. That's just my morning routine personality. Also, part of my morning routine is I love the New York Times games. There are 4 of them I do every morning. It primes my brain. It aligns well with one of my personality types of I love puzzles. That's really relaxing for me. So again, your morning routine is gonna be different than mine, but the whole point is notice the things I'm mentioning are things that I do for me. I love getting out for a walk or a run with my dogs in the morning. That fills me up. When I don't have that outdoor time, my whole day just goes out of whack. So, in week 1 of back to school season, I will, before that first day of school, I will look at, all right, what time, like, what are my time constraints here? Meaning, when do we need to be walking out the door to head to school, right? And I'm kind of backing up from there, thinking about everything that needs to happen in order for us to head out the door to get to school on time. And I'm mapping out a rough plan for myself of when do I think I need to wake up so that I can do the activities I've decided ahead of time are going to set me up for success before I go into task mode. All right. And notice I'm saying draft. I don't know how it's going to go until I actually test it out. But what I want to do is come in with a game plan. So then, week 1 of the back to school, I'm really focused on fine tuning and identifying what's going to be the right morning routine for me that will have a huge impact on the rest of my day, both for myself and for everybody that I live with. So, what this looks like is I will have my plan of attack before the first day of school. Then, on that first day of school, I'm going to execute what I think my morning routine is going to be. And at the end of the day, I'm going to jot down what worked, what didn't, right? And I'm going to do this every single day for the first week. All right. Because I'm going to be tracking and learning. Did I like it? Did I not? Did I get up in enough time? Did I get up too early? How did I feel? Was I irritated walking out the door to school? If so, why? It always takes me at least a week to kind of sort through this. So then at the end of week 1, I am looking back on kind of the little notes that I made for myself, what worked, what didn't. And I'm coming up with, I think is going to be my good morning routine as we head into week 2. Usually because I've been doing morning routines for so long, I can usually figure out and have tested and tweaked during that week 1 that by the time week 2 hits, I know exactly what my plan of attack is going to be for my new morning routine for the school year. Now, it's always open to change as, things shift, right? So, some examples, I was actually looking back through my notes from last year when we were hitting back to school season. One of the things that we had mapped out was that we were going to pack lunch the night before. Well, during that whole first week, we noticed that just didn't work well for our daughter. She has very sensitive stomach, and so it seemed like every morning when she woke up and remembered what she had decided for her lunch the night before, she's like, "Oh my god, like the thought of that makes my stomach hurt." So we're like, "Okay, we need to bring lunch packing back into the morning," which meant I needed to adjust my times. We then shifted some roles and responsibilities around of what my husband was doing versus what I was doing. And at the end of the day, I ended up changing my wake up time by 15 minutes from what I thought it was going to be. So those are just kind of some examples of, why things may shift from what you originally planned. So week 1 focused solely on really nailing what my morning routine is going to be. And again, this is all about me making sure that before I get into service mode or morning task mode, I have filled myself and I've taken care of myself first because everybody wins when I am a more delightful person in the morning. All right, so now let's shift on to week 2. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they try and do what I'm recommending in week 2. They try and do it in week 1. And that does not work. And I'm going to tell you why. So, first, what is my strategy for week 2? Week 2 of the back to school season is when I do a brand new time audit. I am a huge fan of time audits. It's actually where I start everybody when they come into the top program. And it's something I do for myself every time there's a big shift of routine or schedule in my life, or I'm finding that what I'm planning doesn't seem to be actually happening. So I know from past experience that every back to school season presents itself with new challenges, new shifts in energy, time, schedules, etc. So, why do I wait to do my time audit in week 2? If you do your time audit in week 1, you are going to have bad data, if you will, to work from. And here's what I mean by that. Week 1 of back to school is usually a little chaotic. So, one way of thinking about this is you want real data, not crisis or chaos data. Right? So week 1, there's going to be the learning about, got up too late, got up too early, I didn't leave in time for school pickup, the activity took longer than we thought, there's unplanned trips to the store for school supplies that we got wrong or forgot or a teacher added stuff onto. Your kids are gonna be tired, right? So it's gonna create different emotional energy until we start to settle a little bit more into the norm of the school year. So if you do a time audit during week 1, you're likely going to be getting data back from it that's not the realistic, what the normal school year data is going to look like. Here's what I'm tracking in week 2 with my time audit. I actually do it inside of my top planner. So I always do all my planning for the week inside of the top planner. It's a planner I built, so obviously I use it. I will, as I'm executing my week, meaning I'm living out what I planned, I am just taking a pencil because I use colored pens to do my planning. So I just take a pencil because it's a different, different writing utensil there on the plan. It's visually different color. And I am writing down what actually happened. All right. So, for instance, maybe I put in my plan that there was, and something I was going to be doing from 10 to 11:30. But then when I actually sat down to do it, it took 2 hours instead of 90 minutes. I'm writing that down like, this actually took longer. Now, I'm also writing down all the stuff, where my time is going outside of my work windows, meaning in the morning, in the afternoon, right? I'm writing down what time, I'm putting down a plan. When am I leaving to go pick my daughter up from school? And then I'm actually writing down like how long did that take? Here's what I was planning on doing in my afternoon when we came home from school, but here's what actually happened. So I am writing down the actuals. And this is what I mean by a time audit. Where is your time going all week long? I'm also making notes of how did I feel? Because time audits aren't just about what did you physically do, but how are you feeling during it, right? It might be that I worked on something, but I was exhausted. It felt really heavy, and I don't feel like I did a good job. I want to know that so that when I'm doing my future planning, I'm taking those things into account. This isn't like doing a food log to track where your calories are going and beating yourself up for eating food you shouldn't be eating. A time audit is all about you getting very clear visibility of to the realities of your life. How long do things take? What does your life look like, every day at school pickup? What do the evenings look like? Let's get real about it so that we are planning for reality instead of constantly creating plans for things that we want to be real, but the world is telling us they're not. All right. So, again, I do a very detailed time audit during week 2, never week 1. Week 1 is too chaotic for everybody, for the whole family, which is why I wait until week 2 to do a time audit. Now, once I've done my time audit for the week, I'm going back and looking at it and looking for patterns of, okay, what went well? What didn't go well? What did I plan for that I saw consistently didn't happen over the course of that week so that now I'm adjusting my plans? So, some examples of what this looked like for me last year in back to school season. I had planned that my workday would end at 2:30 every day because I leave the house at about 2:40 to go pick my daughter up from school. Well, after looking at my time audit and did it work? Yes, but I had notes all over it that I just felt rushed and a little irritated heading out the door for school pickup. That led me to change my workday to ending at 2 p.m. That gave me a good 30-minute window, sometimes a little bit longer, to kind of wrap up my workday, maybe do a little house reset in the kitchen, have a minute to myself. Sometimes that what this looked like is I left early for school pickup with a really good book, and then I could sit in the car and read for 15 minutes while I was waiting for her to come out of school. All right. So again, it isn't just about did you get it done, but how did you feel? So that was a shift I knew after my time audit. I was like, I need to end my workday actually at 2 instead of 2:30. Another thing I noticed last year that I ended up shifting is I had planned to have my personal time every day, which for me is usually practicing my cello in kind of that late afternoon window between like school is over, but before dinner. Well, I noticed that was not going well. Something either hijacked the time or I just felt rushed through it. So instead, that led me to shift, taking 30 minutes away from my workday every day and replacing it with cello practice time. And so I typically do that as part of my lunch break. I'll have some lunch, I'll go practice my cello, and then I come back to work. So again, these are just two examples. A third one was that I ended up pushing when I started my workday to start 30 minutes later. I had planned on being at my desk and being in go mode by 8:30 every morning, but after doing my time audit, I realized I was lucky to make it by 8:40, but then I felt rushed, and so instead, my calendar was not open for work until 9 AM, and that would buy me time, so that way if there was an, accident as I was driving home from school, I wasn't, getting late to phone calls or so on. So again, if I had tried to do that during week 1, I would have gotten bad data. So I waited till week 2, I learned from my time audit, and then I was able to create some new boundaries, routines, and patterns for the new school year. So if you are heading into back to school mode, here's your homework assignment. All right. First and foremost, relieve yourself from the expectation that you are going to nail your plans right out of the gate. You're not because you don't know what you don't know. So for week 1, I really want you the week before school starts to think about what is a morning routine going to look like for you and have a game plan, something to test that first week to see, what you think about it. Is it working? Is it not? What do you need to shift? And let your expectations go of having this, rainbow unicorns first week of back to school. Guys, it's going to be bumpy. It just is. And if we can step into it with that awareness and go, all right, this first week's going to be a little bumpy. My goal is to just nail something for myself in the morning so that I can start my day feeling great. Then in week 2, now I'm going to start collecting data and information about this school year so that myself and my family can collectively put some plans in place for how we are going to execute the remainder of the school year. Give yourself permission to let those first 2 weeks be a learning experience. Now, there's a difference between intentionally saying, I'm going to make this a learning experience and I'm putting the systems in place so that I can learn from it. Taking notes about your morning routine, doing your time audit, right? That is a very different strategy than saying, I'm going to wing it and figure it out as I go. Because if you step in with figure it out as I go and wing it mentality without knowing how you are collecting information to put the routines and plans in place, you are never going to get there. It's going to feel chaotic all year long. So I hope you have found this helpful. I would love to hear which of the two strategies you are most excited about using. Please, if you're not connected with me over on Instagram, come find me at Megan Sumrell. Shoot me a DM. Let me know which of the two strategies you are most fired up to do this year. And collectively, we can all make it through this back to school season without completely losing our sanity.